The Second Greco-Persian War, Thermopylae. Leonidas of Sparta and Themistocles of Athens found themselves at the center of a storm, neither initiated but both intended to confront. One led a landlocked society of warriors shaped by tradition, the other a burgeoning naval power molded by trade, discussion, and ambition. They did not have a formal alliance when the Persian Empire first threatened the Aegean, but they understood, in their distinct ways, that another invasion was imminent. Themistocles saw it in shipyards and silver mines, urging Athens to build a fleet many citizens deemed superfluous. Leonidas perceived it in the cracks of Greek politics, the rivalries, the self-satisfaction, the reluctance to act. As Xerxes mustered the largest invasion force the Greek world had ever seen, these two men prepared not for personal glory, but to gain time to resist, to unite, to hold out. Their choices, stemming from disparate cities and values, would meet at a narrow pass known as Thermopylae. Chapter 1. The Aftermath of Marathon. A brief pause, a lingering threat. The Battle of Marathon in 490 BC marked a significant victory for the Athenians over the invading Persian forces. It shattered the perception of Persian invincibility and instilled a sense of confidence among the Greek city-states. The Athenian hoplites, though outnumbered, had shown the effectiveness of their phalanx formation and their fierce determination to defend their homeland. This triumph, however, was not the end of the Persian threat. King Darius I, humbled by the defeat, immediately began planning a larger, more extensive invasion. His death in 486 BC simply passed the task to his son, Xerxes I, who was equally, if not more, resolved to bring Greece under his rule. Xerxes inherited a vast empire stretching from Egypt to India, with immense resources at his disposal. He spent several years methodically preparing for the invasion, gathering an army and navy of an unprecedented scale. The sheer size of his preparations caused apprehension throughout the Greek world. Accounts circulated of a force so enormous that it would consume entire rivers and obscure the sun with its arrows. While some of these stories were undoubtedly embellished, the psychological effect was considerable. The very rumor of such an assembly of power sent ripples of fear and uncertainty across the Greek peninsula, forcing individual city-states to consider their allegiances and potential for survival. The Greeks, still largely disunited, faced a formidable challenge. The memory of Marathon was a source of pride, but it also served as a stark reminder of the overwhelming power of the Persian Empire. The various city-states, often in conflict with each other, had to decide whether to resist or submit. This internal division was a persistent vulnerability, a fact well understood by both sides. Some states, driven by pragmatism or fear, quietly sent envoys to Xerxes, offering tokens of submission in hopes of avoiding his wrath. Others fiercely debated the best course of action, their assemblies echoing with impassioned speeches about freedom versus the consequences of resistance. The Oracle of Delphi, consulted by the Athenians, offered enigmatic prophecies, including one that spoke of a wooden wall that would save them. This ambiguous message sparked considerable discussion and differing interpretations, adding another layer of complexity to their strategic dilemmas. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm, Greek Responses and Persian Advance. As news of Xerxes' preparations spread, the Greek city-states began to respond in various ways. Some, fearing the overwhelming Persian might, chose to Medici, offering earth and water as symbols of submission. These were often smaller states, or those geographically exposed to the advancing Persian host. Others, particularly those in the Peloponnese, initially sought to protect their own territories, focusing on building defensive walls across the Isthmus of Corinth, a natural choke point that would, they hoped, shield their lands from the invaders. This reflected a deeply ingrained insularism, a preference for regional defense over a pan-Hellenic effort. Such a strategy, however, would condemn much of northern and central Greece to Persian domination, a bitter pill for the more exposed states to swallow. However, a core group of city-states, led by Athens and Sparta, resolved to resist. Themistocles, a shrewd Athenian politician and general, understood that the key to defeating the Persians lay not solely on land, but significantly at sea. He had long advocated for the expansion of the Athenian navy, foreseeing the need for a powerful fleet to counter the Persian advantage in numbers and their reliance on sea lanes for supplies. His foresight proved essential. The wooden wall prophecy, for Themistocles, clearly referred to the Athenian ships, and he relentlessly campaigned to fund and build more triremes, capitalizing on a recent discovery of a rich silver vein at Lorient. This far-sighted investment would provide the backbone of the Greek defense, transforming Athens into a formidable naval power. The Hellenic League, a coalition of Greek city-states committed to resisting the Persian invasion, was formed. Sparta, renowned for its formidable army, was granted overall command of the combined Greek forces. This alliance, though sometimes fragile due to internal rivalries and differing priorities, represented a remarkable display of unity in the face of a common adversary. Ambassadors crisscrossed Greece, seeking to persuade fence-sitters and unify the disparate poles of Greek power. Despite their historic feuds, a shared sense of Hellenic identity and the imminent threat of subjugation brought many together, forming a precarious but determined front. Crucial to this alliance was a shared understanding that if one major Greek city fell, the others would soon follow. Xerxes' army, after crossing the Hellespont on a bridge of boats, an engineering marvel of its time, reportedly constructed by linking hundreds of ships together, began its march through Thrace and Macedonia. The sheer scale of the army, accompanied by supply ships along the coast, presented immense logistical challenges. Chroniclers described the army as so vast it took days to cross the Hellespont, and its columns stretched for miles. To sustain such a force required a colossal supply chain, relying heavily on coastal shipping to ferry provisions and equipment. The Greeks, well aware of the Persian advance, had to decide where to make their stand. Scouts and messengers brought back terrifying reports of the Persian numbers, reinforcing the urgent need for a unified defensive strategy. Several strategies were discussed. The Peloponnesian states favored a defense at the Isthmus of Corinth, believing it would be easier to defend a narrow passage. This strategy, however, would abandon much of central and northern Greece to Persian devastation. Themistocles and the Athenians argued for a more forward defense, recognizing that abandoning these regions would demoralize the population, grant the Persians invaluable resources, and provide them with secure bases closer to the Peloponnese. Their argument, though initially met with hesitation, gradually gained traction, in part due to the strong persuasion of Themistocles and the compelling arguments of their allies from the north. Ultimately, a decision was made to defend two critical points: a narrow mountain pass on land and a narrow pass on sea. Originally, a pass in Macedon was considered. However, a prompt suggestion from the Macedonian king to use the pass of Thermopylae and the Straits of Artemisium was quickly implemented. These locations were chosen to diminish the Persian numerical superiority. Thermopylae, meaning hot gates, was a narrow strip of land between the mountains and the sea, making it an ideal defensive position, particularly against a large invading force. Its name derived from the hot springs present in the area, adding a touch of natural wonder to its strategic importance. Similarly, the Straits of Artemisium, with their confined waters, would limit the ability of the larger Persian fleet to maneuver, thereby mitigating their overwhelming advantage in ship numbers. These twin stands represented a calculated gamble, hoping to hold the Persians at bay long enough for a more decisive plan to be formulated and executed further south. Chapter 3. Thermopylae, the Unyielding Stand. The Greek forces assembled at Thermopylae were a diverse group, numbering around 7,000 soldiers. This included contingents from various city-states, but the most well-known among them were the 300 Spartan hoplites, led by their king, Leonidas. These Spartans were not just any soldiers. They were highly trained warriors, educated from childhood in the art of war, forged into a cohesive, peerless fighting force. Their presence at Thermopylae was not only for military effectiveness, but also for the powerful, psychological message it conveyed to both Greeks and Persians. For the Greeks, It signified Sparta's unwavering commitment to the cause, a beacon of military might, and an oath of solidarity. For the Persians, it was an early indication of the unexpected, unyielding resolve they would face. Spartan law stipulated that they could not engage in warfare during the Carnia, a religious festival. This was a deep-rooted custom, rarely set aside and deeply intertwined with their religious calendar. However, the urgency of the Persian invasion compelled them to send a smaller force, a vanguard, with the understanding that the main Spartan army would follow after the festival concluded. The 300 Spartans were selected carefully, all of them having living sons, ensuring that their family lines would continue. This selection process speaks volumes about the Spartan commitment to both military duty and the perpetuation of their society, demonstrating a profound blend of personal sacrifice and communal longevity. They were not simply expendable soldiers, but chosen representatives of their city's values and future. Upon arriving at Thermopylae, Leonidas and his men began fortifying the pass, utilizing a pre-existing Phocian wall. This ancient structure, built by the Phocians to protect their territory from incursions by Thessalians, provided a ready-made defensive line, which the Greeks strengthened with additional stonework and palisades, creating a formidable choke point. They understood that their mission was not necessarily to defeat the entire Persian army, but to delay it, to exact a heavy toll, allowing the rest of Greece time to prepare and the Athenian fleet to confront the Persian navy. Every hour gained at Thermopylae was an hour for the other Greek forces to marshal, for Themistocles to perfect his naval strategy. The strategic genius lay in using the natural terrain to negate the enemy's numerical supremacy. Xerxes, initially disbelieving the small number of Greek defenders, sent a scout to assess their strength. The scout reported seeing Spartans exercising and combing their long hair, a ritual they performed before battle. This seemingly casual act was, in fact, a deeply symbolic preparation for death, a final grooming for eternal glory. Xerxes, puzzled by this display, consulted his advisor Demaratus, an exiled Spartan king who understood their customs. Demaratus explained that the Spartans were preparing for a fight to the death, and their resolve should not be underestimated. This scene, preserved by Herodotus, captures the stark cultural clash. The Persian emperor, accustomed to quick submission and the vastness of his legions, encountering a people whose very rituals bespoke an unyielding will and an embrace of honorable death. For several days, Xerxes hesitated, unable to comprehend why such a small force would not flee. His immense army was accustomed to overwhelming resistance with sheer numbers, not facing determined stands in narrow defiles. When they did not, he ordered his Medes and Scythians to attack. The narrowness of the pass meant that the Persians could not bring their vast numbers to bear. It became a battle of individual units and formations, where the Persian advantage in sheer quantity was nullified. The Greek phalanx, with its interlocking shields, the hoplon, and long spears, the dory, formed an unyielding barrier. Each hoplite was a part of a human wall, their collective strength far exceeding the sum of their individual parts. Wave after wave of Persian soldiers crashed against the Greek line, suffering heavy casualties as they were funneled into the confined space. The Spartans, known for their discipline and ferocity, fought with remarkable courage, repelling every assault. They employed a clever tactic, feigning retreat. To draw the Persians deeper into the pass, then suddenly turning and reforming their phalanx to inflict maximum damage upon the disorganized Persian ranks. This disciplined feint would rout entire detachments of their foes. Xerxes, frustrated by the lack of progress and the significant losses, sent in his elite immortals, his personal guard, hoping they would break the Greek resistance. These were his most trusted and feared warriors, a corps of 10,000 men who were always maintained at full strength, their name reflecting their constant numbers. Yet, even these feared warriors were unable to overcome the determined defenders. The Greeks fought as a single unit, their training and discipline allowing them to maintain their formation even under immense pressure, rotating fresh men to the front lines and holding their ground against the constant onslaught. The pass was littered with Persian dead, a stark testament to the effectiveness of the Greek defense, a bloody pile of bodies that grew with each unsuccessful assault. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the price of the Persian advance. The battle raged for 2 days, with the Greeks holding their ground against overwhelming odds. The Persian losses mounted, and Xerxes grew increasingly desperate. His initial confidence began to erode as his supposedly irresistible force was held at bay by a comparatively tiny Greek contingent. The delay was causing significant logistical strains on his enormous army. It was then that a local Malian named Ephialtes betrayed the Greeks, revealing a secret mountain path that bypassed the main pass. This path, known as the Anapeia, would allow the Persians to outflank the Greek position, rendering their carefully chosen defensive stance useless. The treachery of Ephialtes remains a bitter footnote in Greek history, forever associated with deceit and betrayal. He showed the Persians a route known only to locals, a treacherous goat path over the mountainous terrain. Upon learning of the betrayal, Leonidas understood the gravity of the situation. He knew that their position was untenable, that they would soon be encircled. He dismissed most of the allied Greek forces, urging them to escape and warn the other city-states. This was a critical decision, as it saved thousands of Greek lives and allowed them to continue the fight elsewhere. The 300 Spartans, along with a contingent of Thespians and Thebans, remained behind, choosing to fight to the last man. Their sacrifice was not in vain. It bought crucial time for the rest of Greece to organize its defenses, to strengthen its resolve, and to prepare for the subsequent battles. The choice to stay was deeply rooted in Spartan honor and the belief that retreat was never an option, particularly for their king. For them, death in battle was the ultimate glory. On the third day, as the Immortals advanced along the mountain path, the remaining Greeks at Thermopylae faced a two-pronged attack. Surrounded and outnumbered, they fought with extreme bravery. Their formation, no longer protected on its flank, broke down into individual heroic stands, a desperate melee. Leonidas himself fell in the fierce fighting, his body becoming a point of contention as both sides struggled to claim it, a grim tug-of-war for the fallen king. The Spartans, after an arduous struggle, were eventually overwhelmed. Their final stand on a small hill, fighting with swords and even bare hands after their spears broke, became legendary. The last few hundred Greek defenders perished, their sacrifice ensuring their place in history. The Persian victory at Thermopylae was hard-won, a Pyrrhic success purchased with the lives of thousands of their own, a costly lesson in the mettle of their Greek adversaries. The Battle of Thermopylae, though a tactical defeat for the Greeks, was a profound moral victory. It demonstrated the unwavering spirit of the Greek defenders and inflicted heavy casualties on the Persian army. More importantly, it strengthened the resolve of the Greek city-states to resist and provided a powerful narrative of self-sacrifice for freedom. It became a powerful rallying cry, a story to be told and retold, inspiring courage and unity in the face of continued adversity, proving that sheer numbers alone could not guarantee conquest.